What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down, take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching storyline and combine them together into one big video. Now, today's full story video is going to be over the Ultimates, the first Ultimate series. You see, in the early 2000s, when it came to Marvel Comics, they were trying their best to build the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Earth 1610. They gave us Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, but they also gave us the Ultimates. Now, the Ultimates first series ran for about 13 issues. 2 volumes, and so I made 2 videos. But now this video is going to be the combination of both videos together to give you guys the complete story of the first series of the Ultimates. And then later on, we're going to do Ultimates 2. But I do hope you enjoy today's comic book video. Okay, so I kind of want to go back and recover the Ultimates from the Ultimate Marvel Universe, the original Ultimate Marvel Universe. And the reason why, because I feel like personally, I can do a better job than I did in the past when it comes to retelling the stories of the Ultimates from the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, you have to remember, when it comes to the Ultimate Marvel Universe, it was built in a way where you had to think about our world. What would happen if heroes had appeared in our world? What direction would our world go to if we had heroes around the board just flying around trying to do different things? And that was what the Ultimate Marvel Universe was like. It was more realistic, more grounded than the main Marvel Universe. And so when it came to the Ultimates, they were very different from their main Marvel Universe counterpart. But it did give us some interesting storylines. Some were good and some were, they were something. But today's video is going to be Ultimates Volume 1, issues number 1 through 6. I kind of want to see you guys get a taste of what the Ultimates were like when they first appeared in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, when it comes to the first chapter for today's video, it solely focuses on Captain America. We don't really get the chance to see other members of the Ultimates just yet, except for Tony Stark. And even then, we only see Tony for like 2 or 3 pages. Now, getting back over to Steve Rogers, we do pick up in the year 1945, and we do see Steve still fighting in World War II, and this is going to begin the process of moving him over into the present day. Now, when it comes to Steve Rogers, we do learn that most of the men in the military don't really trust Steve at all because they feel like he's only here as a way to trick young men back at home to join the military to fight in this war. But the ones who had fought along Steve multiple times, like Bucky, they tell the rest of the men, no, Steve has never failed a mission, and he's not going to fail this one either. And so you have Steve and his crew get ready to jump into the next battle. Now, when it comes to Steve Rogers, we do learn that his next mission is to stop Germany from being able to win the war. You see, when it comes to Germany, they have a missile, a nuclear missile. If that missile hits the US, then Germany wins the war. And so when it comes to Steve, his main goal is to stop that missile. But unfortunately, by the time he walks into the room, the missile was already launched into the air. Now, luckily for Steve, he was able to jump onto the missile before it left the building. But now he knows that he's not going to make it, that this is going to be his last mission. And so he calls out to Bucky to tell Bucky, hey man, listen, I am not going to make it at all. This is a goodbye. I wish you very well. And so you have Steve pull out a grenade. That grenade explodes, and then the nuclear missile also explodes. And you have Steve just fall straight into the Atlantic Ocean, leaving us wondering what could possibly happen to him. But it's very similar to the main Marvel Universe Steve Rogers in some areas. But either way, there goes Steve. But then we jump over to the present day and we pick up with Tony Stark, and we see Tony and his crew currently trying to climb Mount Everest. But then you have Tony tell every single member of that crew that he is about to go in a new direction in life, and tells everyone they all have been reassigned to New York, to Manhattan, to work on a new project. And then we're left to wonder what could be this new project that he is talking about. But then we dive into the second chapter, where we pick up with Bruce Banner having lunch with Nick Fury. Now, this lunch is really important for a lot of different reasons. The first is that you had this book doing a callback to Ultimate Marvel Team Up number 2, where you had Spider-Man fight against the Hulk when the Hulk had attacked New York. And so when it comes to Nick Fury and Bruce Banner dinner, well, their restaurant has the perfect view of where the Hulk had attacked last time, and that area still being repaired. Now, apparently it has been a few months where now Bruce Banner is constantly being tested by the American government to make sure that he no longer has the ability to turn into the Hulk. Now, we also learned that Nick Fury had just been promoted to the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, this is really huge because it leads into our next reason for this dinner. It's Nick telling Bruce, hey, the American government, the president, the military, they all agree it's time to relaunch the Super Soldier Program. We want you to try again to recreate the Super Soldier Serum, because it was the reason why Bruce had turned into the Hulk. He had created a serum before, believing he finally cracked the code, but unfortunately he did not, and he turned into, well, the Hulk. But you have Nick saying, hey, I'm going to bring you back in because all the tests proved that you are clean. There's no longer a Hulk inside of you, but I want to tell you, you have been demoted. You're not the person in charge of this program. You're now the second person in charge. Now, we pick up with the Wasp and also Hank Pym, and we kind of find out that these two guys have also been recruited into the new program that Nick Fury is trying to launch. Now, we already know it's going to be a superhero program, but when it comes to Hank Pym, around his time in Ultimate Marvel, he had been working on a lot of different projects, but the one project that got S.H.I.E.L.D's eye was his Giant Man project, to be able to grow in size. And so you having S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury say, hey, we are going to move you two guys over to New York into a better lab so that you are able to continue that project and hoping you can finally complete it. Now, you also have Hank Pym mention the idea that these two guys are going to join the superhero team, but so is Iron Man. And that is really huge. And the reason why, because apparently at first, Iron Man was not going to join the the Ultimates program. And that's the big question for Nick Fury. Why did Iron Man change his mind? Because again, he told Nick Fury and the American government, there is no way that you'll have my Iron Man suit part of some superhero team, but then out of nowhere, he changed his mind. Now, we also kind of find out another reason why he was in Mount Everest 4. He was working on a brand new Iron Man suit, the one we are currently seeing. Now, when it came to the Iron Man suit, this one right here in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, I honestly did not like it that much, but hey, it wasn't my choice. But either way, when it comes to Nick Fury, he asks the question and Iron Man answers. He says, the reason why I want to help because I thought it would be a good idea to see the American government, the American military, and also billionaires finally coming together and try to help save the world instead of trying to bleed it dry. I'm trying to be a better example of what billionaires should actually be doing when it comes to their money and power. And Nick Fury kind of likes that answer, but you can tell there is another reason why Iron Man wants to join the team. Now we have to shift our focus back over to Bruce Banner, but also the Wasp, so that we are able to learn a tad bit more of information about Bruce. You see, we kind of find out that Bruce was engaged to Betty Ross, but they had broken up. Now, here's the thing, because we're left to believe the reason why him and her broke up is because she took some kind of test to see if their relationship was toxic. And apparently, Bruce was a very toxic person in the relationship. And so she had no choice but to go ahead and leave. Now, we also kind of find out that Betty and the Wasp used to be roommates back in college, but it was only for a short period of time. Now we kind of find out the building that Bruce and the Wasp are walking into is going to be the base for the Ultimates down the road, but also it contains the labs that our heroes are going to work out of. Now when it comes to Bruce and the Wasp, when they walk in, they see Hank working on the Giant Man experiment once more, except this time he's testing it on himself. Now we do learn that there is a limit that he is allowed to grow to, and that is 60 feet tall. We also learn in the possibility there is a secret to his serum that he does not want the world to actually know. But here's the thing, if he's able to pull off this experiment, then the American military can take his project and then send in an army of giant men to help them win wars. And so once you have Hank be injected with his own serum, we do see that he is able to grow in size up to 59 point something, right up to almost 60 feet tall. But it worked, and he is perfectly okay. And for Bruce, it hurts him to see this because Hank Pym was able to pull off one of his experiments, and Bruce cannot do that himself because he has been working on the super soldier serum for years. But then he gets a call, and this call could possibly help him a lot because you have Nick Fury say, hey, listen, I think I could help you finish the super soldier program because you're not going to believe what we just found. We found Captain America and we are unfreezing him at the moment. This is great for us and for you. Now, as we dive into the third chapter, we do pick up with Hank Pym and the Wasp, where you do have the young couple being able to spend some quality time with one another, but at the same time, they're still testing out a few things when it comes to Hank Pym being Giant Man. So, for example, his suit, so that he has something to wear when he's out there fighting against different super villains. And honestly, that's a good idea because I'm pretty sure the world is not really ready to see a 60-foot tall naked man running around. But then out of nowhere, you do have the Wasp get a call from Nick Fury saying, hey guys, we need you back at the base now. And so we have to jump back over to the main base for the Ultimates. And you have Bruce, Nick, and Tony waking up Steve Rogers. And this is a huge moment for Steve because once he wakes up, they tell him everything he needs to know about the idea that one, they won the war, but two, that war took place 50 years ago. Hey man, you're now in the year 2002. Sorry, but hey, here we are now. And for Steve, it's just too hard for him to process that. He's kind of like, there's no way you're going to tell me that I was frozen in time for over 50 years. There's no way. And so you have Steve Well, try to break out of the base. He actually attacks Nick, Tony, and Bruce. Now, Bruce cannot turn to the Hulk because, again, they made sure to take the Hulk out of him. And so, unfortunately, it does look like Steve might be able to get away and just run into the city until he is stopped by Giant Man, who had just came back to the base in time to see what in the world was going on. But now he knows. They got Steve Rogers. Now, this leads into one of the hardest moments for Steve Rogers. The idea of going to pay a visit to Gail, the woman he loved back in the 1940s. But we kind of find out after he had supposedly died, she moved on. She got married to Bucky, his best friend. Now, you would think, okay, Steve should be mad. His best friend married his girl. But no, he's not mad. He's actually happy because Bucky was able to give Gail a life. They had children. They had grandchildren. He took care of her. He loved her. It's great for Steve to see that Bucky and Gail were together. But the problem is when Steve goes over to pay them a visit, Bucky is happy to see Steve. But Gail, she does not want to see Steve at all because she does not want Steve to see her as an older lady. When he left, she was young and beautiful, and now she feels like she's old and ugly. But you have Steve kind of like, I don't care. I just want to see you. But she does not want to see him. And so he has to leave. Now, you then have Nick Fury take Steve Rogers over to a nearby cemetery. Now, when they arrive, we kind of find out that it's Nick Fury informing Steve Rogers what happened to every single family member of Steve Rogers when he was gone for 50 years. His mom died, his dad died, his brother died. The only person he has left now is a niece who moved to Idaho with her husband. And so Steve said, you know what? Let her be, because she doesn't even know who I am, because I died, or supposedly died, and I was gone for 50 years. I'm technically on my own now. But now we jump over to this event where you have Nick Fury and Betty Ross about to walk into. Now, when it comes to Betty, we do learn that she is the PR person for the Ultimates. And that is really important for this section because we do learn that we now pick up with a launching event. It's the idea of telling the world what the American government, what its SHIELD is trying to do to put together a superhero team. Steve Rogers, Hank Pym, the Wasp, and Tony Stark. That's really it. Now, you do have Tony mention another member to the team that he is trying to recruit, and that would be Thor. But he'll come later on. But the whole point of this is to show the world what the American government and SHIELD is trying to do. To show the people of America that, hey, we're putting together a superhero team to protect this country. And this is really huge. Now, we do see Tony Stark having an interview with Larry King. Now, this interview is really important because it's Larry King pointing out one big question. What is the point of the Ultimates? Because if you look at it right now, so far the American government has spent $50 million to just build you guys a base. And other $1 billion were used as a way to pay for every single person's salary who works for SHIELD, including you guys. But here's the problem though. So far as a team has been put together, you guys have not caught a supervillain. You guys have not handled any kind of war situations. Bruce Banner was not able to crack the super soldier serum with the blood samples of Steve Rogers. If you look at it, there's no actual point for the Ultimates. You are wasting America's money. Now for Tony, it's more of, but here's the thing. We're trying to prepare ourselves for the possible future of many different supervillains popping up left and right. Now, by this point in Ultimate Marvel, they only had technically one supervillain, and that would be Magneto. The other ones like Green Goblin and maybe like Doc Ock weren't as big as Magneto, who was trying to cause havoc across the entire country. And so for Larry King, he's saying, hey, listen, I get it, we already had one, but how do you know we're gonna have more? And what if you guys are the problem? What if you guys are the reason why we have more and more supervillains popping up left and right to attack America? Can we actually trust the Ultimates? But getting back over to Steve Rogers and the Wasp, we see the Wasp buying Steve a bunch of clothes so that he's able to fit in with the present time. But also she's kind of trying to build some kind of friendship with Steve Rogers that could play out in different ways down the road. Now, when it comes to Steve, we do learn that he did move back into his old neighborhood. Now, when it comes to the Wasp, that was a very bad idea because his old neighborhood is very rough. It's not really a safe area for him or possibly other people as well. But for Steve, he said, I grew up here. I want to stay here because this area is a part of me. Except when they get back to his apartment, he comes to find out somebody has broken into his apartment and stole a few things as well. Now, we do get reminded that Betty Ross is the PR person for the Ultimates, and she's very upset at the moment because, one, Tony Stark is away on some kind of space trip. Steve Rogers in the city right now trying to hunt down the kids who attacked his apartment, and the Wasp is helping out with that. Hawkeye is supposed to be a member of the team, but he did not show up, and Thor still has not joined the team at all yet. And so for Betty, she's very upset because she had called in a bunch of reporters, and the only person she can show off at the moment of the team is Giant Man, and that's really it. The rest of the team is far away, and this hurts the image of the Ultimates even more. Now, we also get a better look of the relationship between Betty and Bruce, and for me personally, it's just her constantly talking down to Bruce. Now, yes, he did mess up by turning himself into a Hulk, but it seems like there are other things that really did bother her when it came to Bruce Banner, and she is constantly attacking him for those different reasons. Now, something else I do want to mention about the Ultimate Marvel Universe is that it was built in a way of saying, what if heroes appeared in today's world, in our world? And so the idea that you have Bruce and also Nick going out of their way to try to recruit Thor is wild and crazy, because it's the idea that how in the world are we going to have an actual god on Earth just walking around so freely? Now, I should also mention that when it came to the origin of Thor, we were not really given any kind of information about him until his own Ultimate Thor miniseries, which I did cover, and I do say you should go over there and watch that video to get the full origin of the character. But around this time in Marvel Comics, no one knew the actual origin of Thor. It was just that he's some dude walking around with a hammer claiming that he is some god, but everyone else around him does not believe in the idea that he is a god. And so you have Nick and Bruce coming out of their way and trying to recruit Thor, except he says no. And the reason why he says no, because he believes that Nick, Shield, and the American government are all just bad people. Yes, you're telling the world right now this superhero team is being used as a way to protect the country from super villains, but sooner or later down the road, you are going to use that superhero team to help you win wars across the world. And that right there is a huge problem, because sooner or later, you guys are going to kill innocent people. And so Thor says, no, I am not going to join your new ultimate superhero team. Now, we jump back over to the base of the Ultimates, and this is going to lead into the beginning of the return of the Hulk in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, because we do pick up with Nick, Tony, Hank, and also Janet. Now, those four characters, they are currently talking about the idea that down the road, there could be a movie about them, and which actor or actress could possibly play them in those movies. But when it comes down to Bruce Banner, they give them different actors as a way to make fun of him. Now, he's not in the room just yet until the very end. And when it comes to Hank and Nick's last couple of jokes, Bruce hears it, and it makes him very upset because the whole point of the joke was Bruce was not able to crack the super soldier serum. It has been weeks, and we have Steve Rogers now, and Homeboy still cannot crack it, and that is a huge problem. Now, later on that night, we do pick up with Bruce calling up Betty Ross. Now, Betty, she's on a date right now with Freddie Prinze Jr. She's trying her best to make different kinds of deals as a way to help build out the popularity of the Ultimates. But when she gets that call from Bruce, at first, she's kind of upset until he tells her, shut up and listen. I made a mistake. I gave myself my own version of the super soldier serum. Now remember, the last time he took that, he turned to the Hulk. And so right now, it's about to happen again. He is about to turn into the Hulk, and that is a huge problem. Now, he tells Betty why he did it for. He said, listen, I got tired of the idea that many different people out there were talking down about me, saying that I'm not good enough to be able to crack the code for the super soldier serum. But at the same time, I got tired of hearing how having the Ultimates is basically pointless, that we are wasting the American government's money on this program. But now I'm going to show the world there is a reason why we need the Ultimates. I am going to turn myself into the Hulk and allow the Ultimates to fight me in front of a crowd of people. And that will show the world, yes, we need the Ultimates for situations like these. And so he hangs up the phone. He passes out. Now, luckily for him, well, at first, luckily for him, you do have an ambulance come by to take him away. But as they're taking him to a nearby hospital, he turns into the Hulk. And the last page of this chapter is the Ultimates getting ready to go out there to fight against the Hulk. Now, around this time, you only had 4 members: Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, Giant Man, and the Wasp. And that's it. And so it's kind of like, can these 4 heroes actually take down Ultimate Hulk? And so you have the whole entire 5th chapter be used as a way to see the Ultimates try their best to stop the Hulk. Now, when it came to Bruce Banner, he knew that he was going to turn into the Hulk. And so he left behind a cure in his lab for the Ultimates to find to hopefully use against him as a way to stop him. But the problem is they have to get close to him, or at least calm him down after getting close to him. Now, they send in Giant Man at first, and you would think, okay, Giant Man might have an advantage here. No. The Hulk teaches Giant Man a lesson by saying, you are nowhere on my level at all. And you have the Hulk, who's more savage than the main Marvel Universe counterpart, trying to kill off Giant Man, trying to rip his head off. But luckily, Iron Man flies in to take the Hulk somewhere else. Now, like I said earlier, I didn't really like the Iron Man suit in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. This model right here. Later on, he will have better models. But the main reason why I did not like his armor suit is because it wasn't as powerful as his main Marvel Universe counterpart. And I do understand that this was the early days of Ultimate Iron Man in the world of the Ultimate Marvel Universe, and on top of the idea that we are supposed to believe what would happen if heroes appeared in our world when it came to the Ultimate Marvel Universe. And so when it comes to Iron Man, he's trying his best to throw out different weapons on Hulk, but none of those weapons can properly take down the Hulk. And then his armor suit is constantly losing power at a very fast rate. And so he needs somebody else to step in for him. And so you have the Wasp use her tatas as a way to distract the Hulk. Now, the Hulk follows her over to where Steve Rogers is at, and now it's up to Steve to bring down the Hulk. Now, Steve knows that he really can't go toe-to-toe with the Hulk for a very long period of time, but he also knows that he only needs to hold the Hulk off long enough to allow the Wasp to inject the cure into the Hulk's body. Except when it comes time to inject the cure, well, the the needle breaks. And so there goes that plan. But Steve Rogers, he has other plans up his sleeve. But luckily for Steve Rogers, somebody else does step in to give him more time to hopefully work that plan out. And you have Thor appear. Now, when Thor appears, let's not forget, he did tell Nick and Bruce that he will not join the Ultimates if they're going to just be going around the world attacking other countries who are possibly enemies to America. But he did say that he'll step in to fight against super villains. And currently, the Hulk is a super villain. Now, this is Thor thinking that because he is a god, he should be able to take down the Hulk. It's not him trying to buy Steve more time to make a new game plan. It's him saying, no, I am going in for the killing blow to hopefully take down the Hulk. Now, I won't kill him, but my goal is to have him go ahead and give up for us. Except Hulk's kind of like, dude, your attack did do some damage to me, but I'm not going to give up. Let this battle continue on. Now, before you have the Hulk be able to beat down on Thor, we kind of find out that Steve Rogers does have another plan that could possibly bring down the Hulk. And he says, hey Hulk, I know what you want. You want Betty. You want Freddy. They're both currently in that chopper right there that's leaving the area. If you want to get them, you got to go up there to get them. And so you have the Hulk go to a nearby building to jump off that building to hopefully get to Betty. Now you're probably wondering, why in the world would Steve Rogers make Betty and also Freddy bait for the Hulk? Well, inside the head of the Hulk is the Wasp, and she does use her ability to hit a part of his brain, the Hulk's brain, that turns off the Hulk persona, turning Hulk back into Bruce Banner. And so by the time he gets back down to the ground, he's just regular Bruce Banner again. Now, when it comes to Bruce, he is begging for forgiveness. And you have Steve say at first, hey man, listen, I understand why you did this for. Listen, man, you are most definitely part of the team. We couldn't be the Ultimates without you. And then you have Steve Rogers just kick Bruce right in the face to knock him out. And Steve walks away and calls up Nick saying, hey, he's down. Now, can we all go home? Now, as we jump into the final section for today's video, I do want to shift our focus over to Betty Ross because we do pick up a few hours after the incident. Now, yes, you do have the Ultimates going out of their way, making sure that the innocent people who were affected by the Hulk incident are okay, but at the same time kind of enjoying being the popular superheroes who are so loved by the people they just saved. When it comes to Betty though, Betty admits that she was in the wrong because as we saw in this entire video, she was talking down to Bruce and she kind of feels like she is responsible for Bruce retaking the super soldier serum and turning into the Hulk once again. But at the same time, she kind of likes the idea that he went that far to just get back with her. Now, with her being the PR person of the Ultimates, she does tell Nick, hey, don't worry. I'm going to spin this in a way where we actually had a Hulk go on a rampage and we had to use the Ultimates to save the day. And I'll make sure to leave out the idea or the fact that Bruce Banner is the Hulk. Now, I kind of want to skip over a few pages and jump into the last two sections of the story that really matter a lot when it comes to us diving into Volume 2 in our next video. So, when it comes to Tony Stark, he does invite every single member of the Ultimates over for dinner to celebrate the idea that they were able to work together as a team and take down the Hulk. Now, this is really great for Steve, Thor, and also Tony because they are able to build a bond with one another that is going to carry over to later books down the road in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. But it's also the moment where you have each hero kind of explain why they're part of the Ultimates. Like, why are they here for? We already know why for Steve and also for Thor. But we still had no idea for Tony. I mean, yes, we got an idea earlier, But we find out his actual reasoning for being on the Ultimates because he's dying. He has a tumor on his brain, and that tumor is going to kill him in 6 months or possibly 5 years. So why not go out of your way to make sure before you leave the world that you are being one of the greatest men in the world by being a great superhero? Now we jump over to Hank and the Wasp. Now I'm going to warn you guys, this is going to be a very rough topic here because we're going to talk about assault. You see, when it comes to Hank and also the Wasp, they were also invited over to Tony's dinner, but they didn't show up. And the question was, why? Well, we kind of find out why in this section right here. You see, when it comes to Hank, he feels embarrassed about the idea that he wasn't as useful as the rest of the team when it came to stopping the Hulk. And so he feels very embarrassed about it. Now, when it comes to the Wasp, she tries her best to cheer up her husband, but he takes her words in the wrong way. In a way of like, oh, look at you. You're now picking on me, making fun of me. And I bet that you want to sleep with the other men on the team like Tony, Steve, Thor, and whoever else. Now, this argument gets even worse because we do kind of find out that the Wasp is actually a mutant. You see, we kind of find out that it was thanks to her blood sample that he was able to create his giant man serum. Without it, most likely, he would never been able to complete the actual project. Now, when it comes to the Wasp and also Hank, their argument gets so bad, they begin to fight against each other, punching and kicking and throwing objects. Now, Hank did throw the first punch, so Homegirl is just trying to defend herself. Now, the fight gets even worse when you have the Wasp shrink down to her wasp size to attack Hank that way, except Hank goes out of his way to grab bug spray. Now, when it comes to the Wasp, she is a mutant. She's a human wasp character, and so with that bug spray, it actually infects her in so many different kinds of ways. Her human side, but also her wasp size as well. And so she has to hide underneath the desk, except Hank does not stop there. He then uses Ant-Man helmet that he has been working on to call in a bunch of ants to now attack the Wasp. And so by the end of the book, he realized that he went too far. He beat his wife. He basically poisoned his wife with bug spray and then used the ants to beat up on her. He went so far that it's going to lead into some more problems for the Ultimates in the next video. So with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later. Okay, so to continue our coverage over the Ultimates, we do pick up with Volume 2. Now, Volume 2 does pick up a couple of days after the ending to Volume 1. Now, when it came to Volume 1, we had saw Bruce Banner take the new version of the Hulk serum, which of course turned him into the Hulk once again. Now, once he was the Hulk, he went on a rampage, killing off hundreds of people in Manhattan. Now, the reason why he had taken the new serum is because he wanted to give the Ultimates something to fight. Let me explain. You see, when it came to the American government, Nick Fury, and also S.H.I.E.L.D., they were the ones who had put together this superhero team as a way to protect the country, but to also go after super villains. But here's the problem. You see, you had the people of America begin to question the American government in the idea of, do we actually need a superhero team to protect the entire country? Now, the concerns of the people really showed once word got out that the American government has spent $25 billion on this one project. Just this one project. And for a lot of people, they felt like that money could have been used in other things the country currently needs. And so when it came to Bruce Banner, he felt like, okay, you know what? If I turn into the Hulk, I know that Nick Fury will send in the Ultimates to stop me. And once they do stop me, the world can see that yes, we do need a superhero team for different kinds of situations like this one. And so at the end of Volume 1, we did see the Ultimates being able to stop the Hulk. And Bruce was right, because now you have the people of America happy about the idea they do have a superhero team to handle those kinds of situations to protect the country. Now, what really did help out the Ultimates was Betty Ross. You see, Betty Ross is the PR person for the Ultimates. She was able to make sure that word did not get out that Bruce Banner was the Hulk, which honestly is a great thing, because if the American people had found out that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s own scientists had taken a serum to turn into the Hulk to give the Ultimates a reason to fight, it's going to look bad for the American government, for S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury, and almost anybody else who is involved with the Ultimate Project. Now, here's the thing, because now Bruce is locked away deep inside the base of the Ultimates. Now, once Bruce finds out that, hey, the world does not know that he was the Hulk, he believes that he can leave, because the last time he turned into the Hulk, they were able to cure him, to get rid of the Hulk persona. But because he had taken a new version of the Hulk serum, well, now him and the Hulk are permanently bonded to one another. And so S.H.I.E.L.D., the American government, and Nick Fury, they're very concerned about the possibility of him turning into the Hulk once again. And to make sure that he can't, he has to stay locked away forever. But now I want to shift our focus over to Steve Rogers, who is currently going out of his way to show respect to different families who may have lost a loved one in the Hulk incident. Now, while doing that, he runs into Bucky and Gale. Now remember, Gale and Steve dated back in the 1940s, but after he had disappeared in 1945, Gale married Bucky. But either way, the last time Steve tried to see Gale, she did not want to see him at all, because she did not want him to see her as an old lady. But now she is okay seeing Steve, and it's kind of great to see Steve being able to have some friends from his past. But while you had the three characters trying to make plans with one another, you have Nick Fury walk over to Steve and say, hey, we have another problem we have to talk about. And that other situation is the Wasp, because we have learned back in Volume 1 that Hank Pym is an abusive husband. You see, back in Volume 1, he felt embarrassed about what happened in the Hulk battle, because he was the only team member who was easily taken out by the Hulk. The rest of the team was able to hold their own and work together to take down the Hulk. And so because of that, he was very embarrassed and felt like everyone wants him off the team. Everyone is making fun of him. And so when it came to his conversation with the Wasp on the previous night, he felt like she was also making fun of him. And so he attacked her, beat down on her, and did so many different horrible things to her that now she is in the hospital. Now, we also learned from Betty Ross in this section is that that was not the first time that Hank has beaten the Wasp. Apparently back in college, when Betty was the Wasp's roommate, she has seen Hank attack her so many times. And the question is right now, why did she keep going back to him? But no one has the answer for that question. And this is Betty telling both Tony and Steve about the past. And the entire time you have Steve showing that he is very upset with Hank, and he wants to find Hank right now. Now, we jump back over to Nick Fury, and this is where we learn that Nick Fury has two Ultimates teams. You see, the first one, Steve Rogers, Giant Man, the Wasp, and Iron Man, and even Thor, that's the public team. That's the one the public knows about. But he has another team, a Black Ops team, that no one knows about, and that would be Black Widow, Hawkeye, and two other characters who are supposedly mutants. And those characters go around the world to handle different kinds of missions without the world actually knowing. And we see that Black Widow and Hawkeye are about to go on a mission right now. But before you have Black Widow being able to give us more information, you have Steve wonder, where in the world is Steve Rogers? And we see Steve Rogers in the computer room using all the different satellites available to locate Hank Pym. Because like I said earlier, Steve wants to pay Hank a visit. And when I say pay him a visit, I mean Steve wants to beat the living you-know-what out of Hank. But now we are going to shift our focus back over to Black Widow and also Hawkeye. Now, when it comes to Black Widow and Hawkeye, like I said earlier, they're part of the Black Ops division for S.H.I.E.L.D. And they're currently on a mission with one another, but they're also working alongside with an army of soldiers who work for S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. Now, you have everyone about to attack this office building, but I really do like this section a lot because it really shows that Black Widow and Hawkeye are best friends. Now, if you have read every single Ultimate story, you already know that even though Black Widow and Hawkeye are best friends in this storyline, well, in Ultimates 2, that goes completely out the window. But either way, you do have Black Widow and Hawkeye and the soldiers being able to attack this office building, killing off every single person inside the building. Now, you're probably wondering, hey, Fresh, why are they doing that for? Well, you see, every single person belongs to a hidden organization that Steve Rogers was fighting back in 1945. And this is going to be very important for the rest of the chapters for this volume. But either way, you do have Black Widow and Hawkeye and their soldiers being able to take down every single person just like that. But then you have Hawkeye and Black Widow head back over to the main base of the Ultimates, where they are introduced to the rest of the team, the public team. And we kind of find out that they have been promoted to the public team. So Black Widow and Hawkeye will now be fighting alongside with Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Giant Man, and also the Wasp. Now, I did say earlier there were two other members who were part of the Black Ops team, and we kind of find out it was Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. But they're going to stay on the Black Ops team for a lot of different reasons. One, because they're mutants. Around this time in Ultimate Marvel, mutants were not really loved at the moment. And two, Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch are children of Magneto. And when it comes to Magneto, he was a well-known bad guy in the Ultimate Marvel universe who had actually kidnapped the president's daughter in an earlier Ultimate X-Men storyline. And so it's possibly best to keep those two on the Black Ops team and not tell the world they're part of the Ultimates. Now, when it comes to Nick, he tells us this meeting is not done just yet because he has a dark secret to share about the Earth. You see, when it comes to the Ultimates, they may believe that the Earth is only home to the human race. But you have Nick say no. There's also 11 different alien races on Earth. And one of them is the Chitauri. And they have been trying to take over the Earth ever since the 1700s because they had the ability to shapeshift, and they have been using that ability as a way to work themselves into different governments around the world. They want to get rid of the human race and take over the Earth. And matter of fact, they almost achieved that goal back in the 1940s. World War II. They were working alongside with Hitler and the Nazis, but they were stopped by Steve Rogers, Captain America. Now, when it comes to Nick, he tells us that once the war had ended, the world believed that they were gone because no one could find any of them anymore, just dead bodies across the world. Until 2 years ago, where they kept finding more and more of them popping up left and right across the world. But when it came to that office building, every single person in that building that Black Widow and Hawkeye had killed were all Chitauri. And here's the thing. They were trying to plan another attack on America to take over America, but in different kinds of ways. And so when it comes to Nick, he says, listen, the Ultimate's main goal right now is to find their leader, but to also kill off the last few members of the Chitauri to save the Earth. But then you have Nick wonder again, hey, wait a second, where is Steve Rogers at? And somebody calls him up. But someone calls up Nick to tell Nick, hey, we found Steve. Steve is currently in Chicago. Now, Nick is wondering, why in the world is Steve in Chicago? And this person tells Nick, oh, well, Steve Rogers told us that you gave him a new assignment to overlook Hank Pym's arrest. And so he is currently in Chicago with a team who is about to go in and arrest Hank Pym, who's also in Chicago. Now, once you have Nick sit there and kind of think things through, he realized what Steve is about to do. And he tells everyone, hey, we need to get to Chicago right now because Captain America is about to beat down on Hank Pym for what he did to the Wasp. And so as we dive into the 9th issue of Ultimates, we pick up with Steve Rogers confronting Hank Pym. Now, let me just say this. You have Steve Rogers just getting straight to it. Like, hey, I want to talk to you outside right now. Leave the bar so we can talk. But my idea of talking is really more me kicking your butt because how dare you put your hands on your wife. Now, when it comes to Hank Pym, at first, he is trying his best to make different kinds of excuses to kind of say why he hit Janet, how it's okay for what he had done. But for Steve, no, he wants to beat down on Hank Pym. Matter of fact, he wants a challenge, and he tells Hank, go ahead and change. Turn to Giant Man. I want to give you a fair fight. Let's see if you are able to take me down. And you didn't have Hank turn into Giant Man. And you have the two characters fight. But it's really more of Steve being able to take down Giant Man no matter what. Now, after doing that, it's kind of funny because after you have Steve being able to take down Giant Man, you have a bunch of soldiers arrive saying, hey, Nick said you have to step down, like you were not allowed to beat down on Hank. But it's kind of like, y'all too late. Hank has got his butt whooped, literally got his butt whooped by Steve Rogers. Now, I kind of want to talk about Betty Ross for a brief moment to kind of show you guys why I do not like her character at all in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Not until she becomes She-Hulk, and even then it's still somewhat annoying. But when it comes to Betty Ross, back in Volume 1, we saw that she was always talking down to Bruce Banner. And the reason why, because after Bruce had turned into the Hulk the first time back in Ultimate Marvel Team Up number 2, it caused a lot of problems for her and Bruce's relationship. And it led to her leaving him behind. Now, as we know, when it came to the last volume, Bruce took the serum to kind of show the world that the world needed the Ultimates, but there was another reason why. Because of Betty. Once Bruce heard that Betty was going out on dates with other men, it literally caused him to take the serum to hopefully show it could possibly work, but to also get her back. And so when it comes to Betty, she's kind of like, I like the idea that Bruce went to extreme limits to hopefully get me back. And so now she's falling back in love with Bruce all over again. Honestly, crazy as hell. But then we have to go check in on Steve Rogers. And this is going to be an awkward moment for the character because he's going out of his way to check in on the Wasp to see how her recovery is going. Except when he walks into her room, she expressed that she is very angry in the idea that he has stepped into her and Hank's business because she believes that nobody else has the right to be part of her and her husband's business. Yes, she did get abused by him, but it's no one else's business at all. But she also believes that it is Steve trying to make a move on her, trying to get with her. Now, you could say that he was trying to do that, but at the same time, it's Steve saying, I'm trying to look out for you because you were being abused by Hank Pym. Either way, she no longer wants to be on the Ultimates, but she also no longer wants to talk to Steve Rogers at all. And she was one of the first few people who tried to become his friend back in Volume 1. But Steve Rogers has no choice but to go ahead and move on with his day. And the reason why, because we see Nick Fury, Black Widow, really most of the Ultimates about to go on their next mission. They're about to go after the Chitauri group to hopefully bring them down once and for all. But then we get a flashback. Now, this flashback does take place back in 1944, where we pick up with Steve Rogers being Captain America, but fighting against another character known as Kleiser, and they are currently fighting on top of a train. Now, when it comes to Kleiser, he is a Chitauri, and matter of fact, he is the leader of the group, but apparently he has been working alongside with Hitler and the Nazis to finish a nuclear device. Now, here's the thing. On that train is the last part needed to finish the nuclear device. And so when it comes to Steve Rogers, his main goal is to make sure they don't get that last part. Now for Kleiser, he believed that Steve Rogers was trying to hijack the train. But when it comes to Steve, he's all like, no, I'm not trying to hijack it. I'm just trying to blow it up to most definitely make sure you guys do not get this last part needed. And so you have Steve jump off the train and the train explodes. And we're left to believe that Kleiser had died alongside with the train. But then we pick up with Steve Rogers arriving at a meeting. Now, this meeting does take place days before the last mission that Steve was a part of when it came to World War II. The same mission we saw Steve going out of his way to stop the rocket that the Nazis were trying to use as a way to attack the United States. The same mission where it led to him falling to the bottom of the ocean and then being frozen in time. Now, when it comes to this meeting, it's really him just gathering all the different kinds of information we already know about, but he needs for that mission. But one piece of information is really important for us as the readers, because you have Steve ask the higher ups, hey, I heard that Kleiser is alive again, that he was seen around the world. And let's not forget, in the last section, we saw Kleiser get blown up alongside with the train, but apparently he didn't die. But unfortunately, the higher ups tell Steve, we don't have any hard evidence to prove that Kleiser is alive. We do feel like he is, and we do feel like he's still trying to find different ways to help out the Nazis. But now we have to jump back over to the present day, where we pick up with Steve Rogers and the Ultimates and also Nick on their way over to what they believe is the home base for the Chitauri. Now you have Steve express the idea that he's very worried about not being able to go back home again, because the last time it was a big mission, he fell to the bottom of the ocean and he froze in time until the Ultimates found him. He's very afraid of the idea of that happening once again. But you have Nick say, no, it's not going to happen. And the reason why, because one, they have the Ultimates working alongside with them, but also there is an entire army of SHIELD agents helping them out to make sure the mission goes well. But now we have to jump over to the Wasp. Now, here's the thing. The Wasp is in the hospital, but the hospital is actually part of the home base of the Ultimates. Now, when it comes to the Wasp, she was trying to call for the nurse to bring her a cup of water, but no nurse was actually answering her call. And so she decided to go out of her way to find some cup to get some water, except she didn't find some nurses, and she's now wondering why in the world they did not hear her call. Why were they not trying to help her? Now, you do have the nurses say, hey, sorry, we're busy, but you need to rest. So let us walk you back to your bed. But unfortunately, these nurses are not really nurses. They're actually Chitaris who had used their ability to shapeshift to disguise themselves as nurses, and they are trying to clear house of the home base of the Ultimates. And right now, the Wasp is their next target. Now, she was able to realize that this is some kind of ambush or some kind of trap. Either way, she realized she has to escape and get the word out to Nick Fury and the rest of the Ultimates that the home base has been taken over by the Chitauri. And this is where things get crazy, y'all, because now we pick up with the Ultimates and Nick Fury arriving to the island they believe to be the home base for the Chitauri. Except when they do arrive, Thor got there hours ago, and he says, listen, I walked around the place to check it out, and I realized something. No one has been here for weeks. This place has been completely abandoned for most likely a month or two. Now for Nick, he cannot believe that. And the reason why, because he got his intel from the psychic division. And usually they're not wrong. But you have Iron Man confirm what Thor is saying, like, hey, this place does seem abandoned. Now, while you have the Ultimates talking, you have the Wasp back at the home base of the Ultimates trying to call out to them saying, hey, you guys are walking into a trap. They're right now trying to take over the entire home base. Now, here's the thing, because out of nowhere, somebody begins to talk to the Wasp. And we come to find out from the guy who was talking to the Wasp through the loudspeaker that apparently the psychic division of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been taken over by the Chitauri. They used their ability to shapeshift as a way to work themselves into the S.H.I.E.L.D. organization. And for a while, they have been feeding Nick false information. And that is really huge, because right now the Ultimates and Nick are on an abandoned island, not knowing that it was actually a trap, because on that island there is a bomb powerful enough to wipe out the island completely, to wipe out every single member of the Ultimates or S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who is currently there at the moment, to give them a big victory over S.H.I.E.L.D. But you didn't come to find out the person who was talking to the Wasp is Kaiser. He never did die back in World War II, and he has been working from the shadows to work up to this moment right here, to get rid of S.H.I.E.L.D., but to then try to take over the world. And as soon as the Wasp realizes what Kaiser is talking about, and she tries to inform Nick, the bomb goes off. And we're left to believe that all the Ultimates who were there on the island, all those different S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who were also on the island, have all been killed off. And so now we dive into the next chapter, where we pick up with Kaiser feeling very excited about the idea that he was able to win. He got rid of the Ultimates. He's about to capture the Wasp. All those different soldiers who were fighting alongside with the Ultimates were also wiped out. But at the same time, he wants to make sure that he did actually win. And so he does tell everyone working under him, hey, I want you to get all the different kinds of confirmation that you are able to get to confirm that the Ultimates have been wiped out, that the soldiers have been wiped out, that Nick Fury has been wiped out. Now, when it comes to Kaiser, he does give us a tad bit more information about the Chitauri by saying, hey, listen, Nick Fury was wrong about us. Like, yes, Our main goal is to take over the earth, but we are not trying to wipe out the human race. Instead, we want you guys to fall in line. Their main goal is to take away the free will of the human race. Let me explain why. You see, when it comes to the Chitauri, they go around the universe conquering different planets. But they don't kill off the races those belong to those planets. Instead, they just take away those people's free will to make them fall in line with their ideals. And so when it comes to the Chitauri, their main goal is to make sure the human race falls in line. They have been doing this for years on years across the universe. Now, yes, they have made a lot of enemies, but they are a huge empire that rules a huge chunk of the universe. And their main goal is to add the Earth to their empire. But then you have Kleiser mention one more very important piece of information, the idea of how the Chitauri conquers the different planets across the universe. You see, usually they work behind the scenes. They love the idea of pulling off secret invasions, but that is a huge problem here. And let me explain why. Because right after he tells the Wasp that, you then have all these different spaceships arrive on Earth across the entire planet. This is the rest of the Chitauri that Kleiser was talking about. But now they are announcing their presence to the entire world. And that ticks off Kleiser a lot because usually they don't work like that. And so he's wondering, hey guys, why are y'all here? But then you have a higher up tell Kleiser the reason why we are here, because while you've been on Earth, the rest of us have been losing the war against our enemies. We have lost planets across the universe that we used to rule over. And now we are trying to escape into another dimension. And so they came here to tell Kleiser, we have no choice but to go ahead and retreat, which means we have to go ahead and blow up this planet to make sure our enemies cannot follow us into our new home. And so in 45 minutes, we are going to use a bomb to blow up the Earth. But before the Chitauri is able to pull that off, you didn't have someone contact Kleiser to say, hey, listen, we are picking up something and we have no idea what in the world it could possibly be. And then out of nowhere, the Ultimates arrive. Every single member of the Ultimates, plus some of the soldiers who were near the Ultimates, were saved by Thor, and then they were teleported back over to the main base of the Ultimates. And so now you have the Ultimates getting ready to go to war against Kleiser and also the Chitauri race, who is trying to blow up the Earth. And Steve Rogers is very down with the idea of trying to stop Kleiser once again. And this leads into the rematch between Captain America and also Kleiser. Now, while you have Steve fighting against Kleiser, you have Iron Man and Thor going out of their way to attack all the different spaceships that had arrived on Earth. And you have the rest of the Ultimates just fighting against the rest of the alien invasion. But now I want to kind of focus on Steve Rogers, because this is his moment. It's him showing the world that, one, he is a great leader, but he's trying to make sure that this time Kleiser cannot come back down the road to cause more problems for the people of Earth. His main goal is to try to kill off Kleiser. Now, here's the thing. Kleiser is still a great opponent for Steve Rogers. They are able to go toe-to-toe for a few pages. When it comes to Steve Rogers, though, he always has backup plans on backup plans to actually help him win certain situations, like this one. Now, before we are able to dive into his backup plan, we have to shift our focus over to Black Widow and the Wasp, who is trying to find a way to shut down the bomb that could possibly blow up the entire planet. Now, when it comes to our two heroes, they are going out of their way to grab different scientists who do belong to the Chitauri race. But the problem is, these scientists rather die than actually help out the human race. But on top of that, all the different instruction manuals is written in the language of the Chitauri. And so unfortunately, the two ladies are having a hard time understanding how to dismantle the bomb before it blows up. But now we begin to learn the next part to Steve Rogers' plan, and that would be the Incredible Hulk. Yes, you heard that right. You see, when it comes to Steve Rogers, he realized the Hulk can give the Ultimates an edge in winning this battle, especially with the idea that the Hulk will kill almost anyone who is standing in his way. And right now, there are a lot of Chitauri standing in his way. Now, when it comes to the Hulk, the only thing he wants is Betty Ross. And so when it comes to Steve Rogers, he can use that as a way to control the Hulk. Now, when it comes to Bruce, he's having a hard time turning into the Hulk at first. And the reason why, because all the drugs they have put inside his body. But they realize there is one other way to make sure he'll turn into the Hulk. And so you have the soldiers who are currently containing Bruce Banner and throw him right out of the helicopter to have him fall to his death, but hoping that he'll change into the Hulk before he hits the ground. Now, when it comes to Steve Rogers, this is hilarious. You have Steve Rogers tell the Hulk that Kleiser has been talking about doing some dirty things to Betty Ross. And when it comes to the Hulk, that is not okay at all. And so you have the Hulk go out of his way to beat down on Kleiser. Now, once you have the Hulk being able to kill off Kleiser, you then have Steve Rogers reappear one more time, telling the Hulk, hey, all those different aircrafts in the air, they had start calling you different names, some very horrible names. And you should go out of your way to teach them a lesson that you are the best thing on the earth. And you have the Hulk say, yeah, you're right. And the Hulk began to smash all the different aircrafts that belong to the Chitauri. Now, we got to shift our focus back over to that bomb that's about to go off. Because you have Black Widow and the Wasp going out of their way to call almost any scientist who could possibly shut down the bomb. The problem is, all those different scientists, they rather spend time with their family before trying to defuse a bomb. They believe that this could be the final moments for the Earth. But then you have the Black Widow remember, wait a second. When it comes to the Ultimates, there's one person on the team who's great with technology, and that would be Iron Man. Now, when it comes to Iron Man, at first, it seems like what he is going to do is just take the bomb and take it into space, sacrifice himself to save the entire world. Except you have Tony say, no, there is no way I am going to give up my life to save the entire world. I'm going to use Thor because Thor has the ability to teleport things almost anywhere else in the universe. Now, we have to remember, when it comes to the Ultimate Marvel Universe, you were left to believe that it was our world. The big question was, what would happen if heroes appeared in our world? That was the Ultimate Marvel Universe. And so when it comes to most of the people in this universe, they don't believe that Thor is actually a god. They believe that every single piece of his outfit is just some kind of gadget. And so when it comes to Black Widow, she's kind of like, wait a second. You believe that Thor is going to have the ability to teleport the bomb somewhere else in the universe? And for her, it's all like, no. Most likely, he is going to teleport the bomb into Canada or Mexico. But either way, the world is doomed. Now, you have Thor show her, no, I am the Thunder Guard. And he does teleport the bomb somewhere else, somewhere near Asgard. So once it does blow up, the Earth will no longer be affected. And with our heroes being able to give the Hulk a serum to turn him back into Bruce Banner and also take out the last few members of the Chitauri, the day is now officially saved. And so before we wrap up today's video, there are a couple things I do want to talk about. So first, I want to talk about the idea that you now have the Ultimates being celebrated across the entire world, because thanks to the Ultimates, the world did not blow up. But now the second thing I do want to focus on is the Wasp. Because here's the thing, when it comes to the Wasp, she's at a salon, but she gets a phone call from Hank Pym. Is Hank Pym and her officially breaking up with one another? She is officially done with Hank Pym and his abusive ways. But we kind of find out later on that night, she is beginning to get with Steve Rogers. Those two characters are now becoming a couple. And that really wraps up Ultimates Volume 2. And so now we can begin our coverage over Ultimates 2 Volume 1. Which for me personally, I love Ultimates 2 out of the trilogy of the Ultimates, because Ultimates 2 was one heck of a storyline. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.